focus, as I said earlier, is on politics and also the war on corruption. Well, joining me in studio now from my extreme left is Salim Odeni. He is a political analyst. Beside him, Arnold Maliba, a political commentator. And beside him is Bessie Kadambi. She's a governance expert. And just beside me is Charles Munier, a political commentator as well. All of you, karibu sana, welcome to the program. And thanks for joining us. Before I get your responses to that story and those words by the CJ, I'd just like to start by asking you, and I'll start perhaps with you, Arnold. This year has kicked off. We're almost at the end of January, but when we look at politics, really, what perhaps has stood out for you the most in 2019 thus far?
Well, 2019 thus far, the only thing that stands out, I think, not only for me but for most of us, is order number one, the executive order number one by the president. I think falling back to 2018 and just trying to begin the year, I think one of his New Year resolutions was not to have the challenges he had last year. So order number one for me stands out, and its echo is going to run throughout the year.
All right.
Yeah.
And what about you, Salim? Do you agree with that point, or what else for you has stood out so far?
I think I would agree with that, the executive order number one stands out for me and the rest of Kenyans. And of course, the reinvigorating the struggle and the war against corruption. And in terms of commitments, whether it's rhetorical or it's coupled with action, is yet to be answered. But then the third thing is the whole question of emphasizing so much on the handshake between the president and Raila Odinga.
Betty, is it just, Bessie rather, is it just rhetoric?
For me, well, there's nothing to write home. I think we're still continuing with the same drama we've had last year. We talk more, but we act less. I would want to see more done on corruption. I will still keep saying if the president can appoint people to monitor others, he can also appoint people to monitor how money from corruption is brought back. And that, for me, is what would make the difference in 2019. Any money taken on any corrupt deal has to come back.
Charles, is that ever going to happen? Is that possible? Am I being too pessimistic?
I believe it will. It will happen. And I think what is happening is that Kenyans get frustrated very easily. And I think this year is marked with that. Kenyans are getting frustrated. At some point, they believed corruption is going to be fought. And they can see steps being taken. But all of a sudden, just one event happens and they are back to where it all started. And they cannot believe that even the Chief Justice has a problem with Friday arrests, which are provided for in the Constitution, that he's saying it as it should be said, that there is little hope unless he's being misunderstood, because I think he needs to be slightly more balanced. I think this year has started off very badly. Order number one is very good, although that, again, that law on coordination of national government is a 2016 law, so it's not really something new. I think the order coming out now, breathing life into the whole coordination of government, is creating a bit of confusion, and you've seen that. People are not sure where it sits and whether its objective is this or the other one. But I think it is going to guide us a lot. It's going to slow down on matters politics, and maybe people, I trust people are going to refocus. But the issue of the fight against corruption, I think what happened last week, this past week, has dented the fight in the minds of the average person than improved on the same. It doesn't matter what the technical team believed it has done, but I think we need to relook at how we do things.
Right, and on the issue of corruption, let's just touch on that story by NTV's Silas Apollo. The CJ says that the war against corruption is not going to be won by critics. Salim, what's your take on how the CJ responded?
I think I want to agree with the CJ in terms of the war on corruption, that we either lose or win it at the point of investigation. If we take cases to the judiciary that are half-baked, then definitely, because courts rely on facts and evidence that are adduced before the courts. And Kenya being using a court system that is adversarial in nature, where the judge has got very little opportunity to investigate the matter, then it all relies on the investigative authorities to ensure that they investigate and bring proper cases before the judiciary. Otherwise, the courts will acquit.
Okay, Bessie.
I think one of the things, I don't agree totally with what Salim is saying, because we have had this conversation all over again. It would be important for the CJ to have his people train with the police as well and give them that equipment and empower them so that they bring cases that are watertight, instead of the blame game of you didn't do, you didn't do, you didn't do. Because how long? If you're really going to fight corruption, then work together. If I know this is not being done, then train them to do it, so that we don't have the kind of back and forth we're having right now.
I think that is a bit wrong where this is headed, because already we know that the judiciary is independent. By the way, DCI and even DPP are all constitutional bodies. They are also independent, have got their own capacity. And if we are going to work together, then it beats the very sense of why the principle of separation should be there. And what the CJ said is not new. These are things we've said on this show. People have written in newspapers that the DCI, the ESCC, and the ODPP are so much into drama. They are not doing work. They are so much into PR. And that they think that is performance. I think we are so much PR based. I think, I don't know where that is coming from, but then arresting people on Friday with a lot of showmanship, a lot of bravado, that is not, because at the end of the day, these guys, by the way, for example, the DPP himself is a lawyer. He should know these things. If you bring in and you mess everything, the judiciary is only an arbiter on what you bring him, facts, and what is brought on the table. So they mess up everything, and then we blame the judiciary. The other thing is that the judiciary has actually been revisited. They were denied a budget. They are working below, as in they can't just run out. So we are not going to mess them and also blame them.
Right.
I think we are getting it all wrong. In the first instance, we have a division that specifically is dealing with matters corruption and economic crimes. So the issue of funding, notwithstanding, we already have a division. Number two, we have practice directions that go into details on how matters corruption and economic crimes should be handled without the aspect of delays and all that. Those practice directions were actually issued by the Chief Justice himself. What the issue is the presumption of innocence in Article 50, where you are assumed to be innocent until proven otherwise, which is okay. It's a provision in the Constitution. And the same provision everyone is using. Just before that is Article 49 that says, if you are arrested, you should be in court within 24 hours. And it provides for, in the event that 24 hours ends on a day that is not a court day, or an hour that is not ordinarily a court hour, then you are taken to court the following court day. That is a provision in the Constitution. So at what point should Maraga find it necessary to point out an issue that is provided for in the Constitution? I think, to me, he should be the one telling us, we'll be sitting on Sunday. If these guys are so good that we need to have them on Saturday out so that they can go to church on Sunday, then we'll be sitting on Friday night, Saturday night, and during the day and Sunday, so that we can provide for these very nice guys, because corruption is being done by people from Mars, those small little green guys that come from Mars. They are the ones that are involved in corruption. It's not the average Kenyan that we see out there in a big car. Now, interestingly, and I think this is where my point of departure with the Chief Justice is, if you look at the way he's already preempted, because I think he's already preempted these matters, you cannot tell me that people started getting arrested. In fact, due process has just started on these matters that are there. I think there should have been clarity on his part on whether he's talking about past cases or the cases that we've seen with the new DPP and the new DCI. Because the presumption of innocence was not to be there so that people are not given due time in court. Look at the orders that are coming out that don't prosecute this person in the first instance. So at what point is the presumption of innocence coming in if you cannot even have a day in court in the first instance? If you are told don't investigate, do not investigate. What are these grounds that someone is going to provide that you don't investigate? Don't touch this person's assets or whatever it is, money in the banks. Don't freeze it. So really, are you telling me then that if a benefit is conferred on you, if tomorrow you wake up with 20 million shillings in your account, that in itself, if corroborated, is evidence that there is a possibility that this is a process of crime. Right. What we are saying is, if this money it can be seen there, it's not a story, it is in your account, and you cannot explain how you got it, then are you telling me a magistrate would feel very comfortable injecting on people investigating you or not taking you to court? Those are the issues that we are talking about. It's not the due process, because I believe it's only maybe later in the year that we'll start seeing fruits of the prosecution that is happening around.
Let me bring Salim into
I wanted to mention that what my good sister is saying, that perhaps it's the Chief Justice that is supposed to sit down with the police and they agree in terms of how it should be done and what should be done. Then that beats logic, and it beats the whole essence of the rule of law.
Right.
Because then the judiciary will turn itself into the prosecutor, the judge, and the hangman in the same case. Because court should sit independently, arbitrate on matters that are brought before it, and it should pretend that it doesn't have any ear or any eye outside the court precincts, so that it only listens to the matters or evidence adduced before court.
Right.
So it can't again pretend that it would go out and agree with the police. Then that's not justice. It will beat the whole question of getting justice. Yeah. But coming to the question of arrest on Friday, I think the whole structure of arresting people on Friday, when we know very well that they will stay over and above the stipulated time, as my brother is saying, then that also beats the question of ensuring that people get access to justice.
Right.
So what should be done, therefore, is that we cannot stop the police and the people with arresting authority from arresting the culprits or the suspects.
Yeah.
But what should be done is that judiciary should move in with speed to ensure that they have sittings beyond Friday evening, so that they have sittings either on Saturday or Sunday or even in the evening, to ensure that people still can access their right to bail.
Right.
Yeah.
And that speaks to resources.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not going to run away from these issues. For one, we strangle them of resources. We want them to work extra hard.
Yeah.
We are using money on jets and luxuries and all other things. Judiciary must be funded well. The other thing is that we cannot eat our cake and still have it. So long as we have got the Bill of Rights, all those things we are complaining about, as in the presumption of innocence and the rights of the accused are out there and we know them. So we are not going to really think that people who are accused of corruption are really different human beings and then they should be subject to a different law. I think we still have got hangovers from the old order where we had people being taken to prison directly, detention without trial and such. Otherwise, judiciary has to work, and we cannot put judiciary in the dock in the fight against corruption, because everything is lost, not in the courts, but at the ballot. We vote for these people. We know who they are. By the only way to win an election easily in this country is to still come, cry wolf, talk about my people and be notorious and win an election. So the same people who vote in these thugs and these criminals are the ones who are now out there making hue and cry.
Right.
We must actually, first of all, interrogate this thing. By the way, we have seen our enemy, and that enemy is us. So the judiciary in this particular case is not to blame. The DCI, the DPP, and even the executive, because they've been playing a lot of politics with these agencies.
I think it's
you
very,
with
a lot of respect.
Yeah.
I think you cannot tell me the judiciary is not to blame when orders are coming out not to investigate,
the judiciary
not to
only
prosecute.
law.
Just a minute. Not to prosecute. I think there's a very thin line between that right that you enjoy as a person and the presumption of innocence. There's a very thin line. So if you're telling me don't investigate this person, don't take this person to court for whatever reason up to a certain time, yeah, what are you telling us? The other thing is, even as good human beings,
even on that
how many such orders exist?
Just one time.
Even on that only.
I'm asking
What
because
are the
this,
premises upon which those orders are issued?
I'm asking. Issues of being taken to court is so that you can have a day in court and prove yourself.
That's true.
Yes.
And this has nothing to do with bond terms, bail terms, and everything. This is about you having a day in court. Remember, the money that is lost belongs to us Kenyans.
Yes.
You are one individual that is accused of maybe misappropriating that money or misusing that particular office that we've been given. So can we also remember, we balance so that the average Kenyan out there, the possibility of this person being guilty is still there. Because we are not saying they are innocent. We are saying they are presumed to be innocent. So what we are saying is, what is the big deal about someone having a day in court?
If you act in a manner to suggest that I will not have a fair day in court, then I have got a right to preempt that and stop you until at such a time I feel safe.
Because
I'm not blaming.
Because
you realize I'm not blaming.
It's not just a question. It's not just a question.
I'm not blaming.
Actually, it's not just a question of you having your day in court.
If you allow me to prosecute,
it should be fair.
I am not blaming the person who is accused.
Yes.
I am totally not blaming that particular person. I am not blaming the accuser who represents the people. I have a problem with the arbiter whose direction is only towards ensuring this person does not have a day in court.
No.
Two people.
Not really,
and it's not everyone. It's not many people. It's one or two.
Let me allow Salim and I'll bring Bessie into this then.
One of the key functions of the courts is to issue orders.
Yes.
If anybody approaches court,
And
including the accused person, so that the court issues orders and he convinces the court, what do you expect the court to do? Because it's not just a question of having your day in court. It's having the right person in court. Why should I be taken to court if I have a reasonable ground to convince the court that the way I'm being dragged to court is not fair? Why should the court not let it proceed?
Let me allow Bessie to
interject. What I agree with Salim is that court is following what they're brought for in court.
Yeah.
So if you give me what the judge says is correct, then we cannot blame the judiciary for following what was sufficient. Yes, I agreed when I said we have to have collaborative effort when it comes to corruption. But that said, it doesn't mean because someone is not doing their job that they should now use the blame game to say it is the DPP, is the judiciary, is what. Everybody has a role. And who is there to keep you on your toes? That is where we as Kenyans also are failing, because Arnold has said we are the same people who will vote these kind of criminals. And then at the end of the day start saying, oh, haki yetu, my people, my people. I agree with what Salim is saying. If today I take and the prosecutor from the government side is not doing anything, yes, and I have come with a very good lawyer who can prove that the way the court is manhandling me is wrong, and I'm given orders, then there's no problem with that. The due process has been followed. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I just want to touch on the issue of funding, because the CJ brought up the fact that they are underfunded as the judiciary. They had at one point asked for 31 billion, but they were given 14. Arnold, in your view, why are they underfunded?
Well, we all remember that they made a ruling in 2017, and there was a promise of revisiting them. When the budgeting process came, and you know, government budgeting runs through the MTF process. It takes a bit of a time, it's technically done. So by the time you arrive at 31 billion shillings, it's scientifically done. And somebody just ensures that you get salaries for the guys who are existing only and cuts everything else. So all the ongoing projects were stopped and everything else. It took a little bit of noises here and there before they got resources. And justice is expensive. Let's not, we really are going to pretend that it's not. It is expensive. So if we want these things to work out, we must fund out the judiciary properly. We must stop playing politics. Because even as we talk about the judiciary, what has happened to EACC, the body that is mandated to act against corruption? And by the way, judiciary's role in corruption, in the war against corruption, is actually to just ensure deterrence by punishment. DCI, EACC and all the other actors should actually be acting on deterrence by denial. EACC, for example, should be tracing and stopping before it happens. It's in the law that establishes them. But those guys wait until it happens and then they start drama around town. Unless DCI, EACC and ODPP stop drama and dancing around in PR, we are not going to win this. And unless the executive also stops these games around the power play, you are giving DCI power that belongs to EACC, you get to ODPP, and now we have become a police state, getting everybody from the National Intelligence Service to run our institutions. That again, you know, even the president himself is to blame, because he really has got a hangover from the provincial administration mentality. Running around with that, he must allow the constitution to work. We would actually have gotten out of this rat long time ago.
All right, Salim, do you agree with
I think I agree with Arnold that one of the whips that has been used to defeat the doctrine of separation of powers is about public finance. The legislature uses it against the executive, that if you don't listen to our issues, then we will not pass the budget. We will hold you at ransom. Then the executive uses it against the judiciary, that if you don't dance to our tune, then we will underfund you. Because some of these drastic measures that we are proposing, they require funding. If we say that the courts must sit beyond Friday evening, then that would require funding.
Yes.
It requires some support, financial support, to help those court officers sit beyond Friday evening. And therefore, I think that's a deliberate effort. Although we didn't want to link it so much to, we will revisit a bit, but I think it's an effort that has been known all throughout history that executive uses to kind of twist the judiciary.
I think I agree with my colleagues that judiciary is underfunded. I would just like my colleague there, I would not want to go the direction of revisiting, because I think historically the judiciary has always been underfunded, even during Mutunga's time. And Mutunga never ruled against anybody. So in terms of the elections of the presidency. So I think that is a fact that they're underfunded. And our National Assembly and the Senate, and especially the National Assembly, has really failed us in two levels. Number one, in terms of allocation of the same funds to the judiciary and even other departments of government that require money to fight corruption. That is a big area. But importantly, even in terms of legislation, if you look at the issues that we have, the problems that we have, that you are sitting governor, you are sitting MP, you are this and that, and then you are, there is no way the court is going to tell you not to go to work, because the provisions of even the Economic Crimes and Anti-Corruption Commission Act are that if your job is provided for in the Constitution, and there is a way it's provided for on how you can be removed or even interdicted, then the Economic Crimes Act stops there, allows the other laws that have employed you to take effect. So if you're talking about a governor that can only be removed either especially by the MCAs, then there is nothing anybody can do. The court will release them back to their offices, and it doesn't matter what Chapter 6 of the Constitution says. So our MPs, honestly, these are small little pieces of legislation that can be able to amend, and then we have them helping the judiciary in terms of who ends up going back to court to work, so that they can interfere with the investigation and with the prosecution as it were. So I think our legislature needs to wake up. We need a National Assembly that is more serious in terms of delivery. And in terms of allocation of resources and funds, generally, I think the judiciary requires a lot of money as it were. Okay. We cannot afford to have the judiciary underfunded as it is right now.
Okay, Bessie, you wanted to?
Yes, I agree that judiciary needs to be funded. More to it is also having people competent who meet the standards to the duty or roles that they're being given. We have an issue where we overpay people who have no skill. Yeah, and they become the bottleneck that anytime you're asking for funding that is something justifiable, they have to look for theatrics and all this drama involved in getting the funds. Because if we really want to fight corruption, what is so hard with giving the judiciary the funding they need? I think we've been funding things that don't actually need funding. Yeah, but we'd rather play the carrot and stick game, because you didn't do it my way, then you will know that I also have power under hand. Yes, because it's straightforward. As Arnold has said, the president is also joking, because if you really want to fight corruption, enable the judiciary. Give them the empowerment they need. If it is funds, fund them. But we'd rather play, you know, you better sing my music so that we do it better.
Okay. Yeah. I know if I ask the question about the weakest link in the war on corruption between the judiciary, the DCI, the DPP, I know Arnold's response, because you've made it clear, but Salim, really, are we able to pinpoint on who the weakest link is?
I think my opening remarks were that we either lose or win these cases at the investigation level. So that if we investigate these cases properly and produce them before court with sufficient evidence, then we are going to win. But over and above the judicial process, I would also want to talk about, because Bessie talked about the issue of collaborative effort, that we go beyond this judicial process and then talk about the social jails. Because even in the community, in the society, people are uplifting the guys who have been suspected of corruption. We still allow them. The church leaders still invite them for Arambes and collect their money. If we would introduce the social jails in the community, so that you are like ostracized just by virtue of you being suspected, that until you clear your name, we have no association with you. But what happens when we see in our religious institutions, we still invite them, and we are very happy about them. And even our people have got a lot of tolerance towards corruption. So that if you're appointed into public office, the public expectations of the ordinary citizen is that you're supposed to steal from there. If you don't steal from them, they will say, Kichwa Maji. Yeah. You were given an office and you came there empty-handed. Yeah. So the expectation is that you're supposed to steal from them. So this is also an area that we need to really strengthen, so that we talk about issues to do with social jails, so that if you are suspected, we don't even talk about you being elected. You can't, because you already know you can't be considered. Even your tithe, nobody will collect from any church. How do we collect your tithe? Until you clear your name and you're sufficiently clean, then you can come and associate with us. So I think that's an area that is left untouched, and we need to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the DCI is doing a good job, and I am happy with him. He's doing a good job. It's for the first time now you can tell something is happening. Trust me, the fear out there, even on those guys that have been practicing corruption day in, day out, I think the fear is real. If today someone walks to you and tells you, I have 20 million, I would like to deposit into your account, NYS or whatever it is, and you give me 10, you remain with 10, you'll say no, and you run away. That would not have happened a few weeks ago, a few months ago. If you're a bank manager and someone comes, wants to withdraw or even 500,000 shillings, today it's becoming very, very tricky. And I think the fight against corruption is a perception issue. It's not really going to be about ultimately the number of people that we have got in jail. Not at the moment. I think the fight is about preempting, and I think my colleague talked about it. If we can be able to preempt to the extent that people are scared of being corrupt or even engaging in matters corruption, at the smallest level even, then I think we'll have won the war. The DPP again, you've seen them shuttling with files, not sure whether to take these people to court, between the DCI and the DPP. And I think the multi-agency team that is working very well, if you ask me. And that's why all of a sudden we don't have here of fights between the EACC, the DPP, and other organs of government that are supposed to work towards. Even KRA is on board, and a lot of even revenue, asset recovery authority. There are many of them that have come together as a multi-agency team. Naturally, you cannot loop in the judiciary, like someone has pointed out, because that would go against the basic principles of separation, and the judiciary is the arbiter ultimately. So there's no way that the judiciary is going to come to the side of the person who is prosecuting and act like the guy on the other side, the accused, is already innocent, as it were. So I think what is important is for everyone to step up. If it's a judiciary and there are orders that are not necessary to give, I think let us have people having a day in court, because I am not seeing, nobody has arrested me. I don't remember you being arrested. So there is a reason as to why certain individuals are getting arrested. And you cannot say it's because of this tribe like some people tried. You cannot say it's because you're from this ethnicity or the other ethnicity. You've been holding a public office, and we know, that one we know, you're not even denying, and that public office has lost money. At that point, prima facie, just looking at it from that point of view, you are the person that is culpable, unless you tell us there's someone else. And I think that is due process that will give us that particular purpose. So to me, currently, we cannot talk about the judiciary, because the judiciary has not started determining these matters. We've seen someone get in jail for, I think, 4 years the other day. I think let us stop talking about the weakest link. Let us talk about areas that need strengthening, because we'll be cutting off a whole arm that is required in this fight against corruption. But I think a lot is happening. The executive is doing its bit. The legislature needs to wake up. MPs must wake up. We have more than 10 pieces of legislation that deals purely with matters corruption, from Public Procurement and Disposal Act, to Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, to all these laws, economic crimes. We need to harmonize these things so that one does not become the gap, the lacuna in terms of the other one.
Bessie, go ahead, you have a contribution.
I think we're not looking at it, because if you say who is the weakest link, it depends on where you sit, and who you seem your heart found for. Yeah, so that we say it is a weak link. But where the weak link for me comes in is in terms of knowledge. Have we empowered Kenyans to know that this is what is? When you are arrested in terms of corruption, this is what you're out to be faced with. So that when we look at what Salim is talking about, that we can ostracize these people who are stealing. But we seem to sensationalize, we make them divas when you steal. Yes, but me who has kept the straight and narrow, I am the criminal, because I am saying you have stolen money, you have stolen coffers money. So we need also to have a social change whereby people know that it is wrong to steal. It is wrong to take money that you're not given. If today, for instance, I am appointed in a seat, in a position that I have no skill, no capability or expertise on it, then I should be honest enough and say, I decline. But what would I would want that position so that my people say, now we have our person in there. We need to have our society change to the point that we agree here and now that corruption stops with me and you.
All right.
I'm thinking,
yes.
Picking from where Charles left, you know, Charles is a very interesting guy. he says that we should not be talking about weak links, but then he says we should be talking about areas that need strengthening. It's just like saying that this is not a hand, it is an arm. Now, quickly, you realize that he actually got to the weakest link as he finished his point, and that is Parliament. Parliament is the weakest link in the fight against corruption, because they are not doing their job. They are all over trying to do the executive's job. At the same time, they try to do the legislature's work. These guys should be doing oversight. These guys also apportion and work on the budget. Yes. Budget goes to Parliament. But you know what they have done? All our corruption is procurement-based. We know what Ouko and his office are also suffering, just like the judiciary. They don't have enough funding, they are ostracized, and they are kicked left, right, and center, because that is where accountability begins. So Parliament is our biggest problem, but we don't want to talk about them, because when we worked on the Constitution in 2010, everybody was given checks and balances, except Parliament. We have got a rogue Parliament that does not do its work. A bit of the money that the judiciary will need is CDF. CDF is illegal. Even the courts have ruled to that end. But parliamentarians don't want to relinquish it. They are all over playing around because they just want to be everywhere. But this Kenya's current problem is domiciled in Parliament, including even Executive Order number 1 of 2019. Is so much about MPs going to Harambee House Annex and leaving this other side, not doing their work. So if we work on Parliament, and you know the best way to deal with Parliament is to let people defend themselves. If everybody was to put his member of Parliament on toes, so that it's not about them being cantankerous and going all over the weekend and coming into funerals and bringing in money and just doing their work, we will be at a different place.
Allow me to disabuse that bit on CDF, because I think we are on national television. I think CDF is perfectly legal, because it is only that Kenyans have never realized that the Member of Parliament is no longer a member of the committee of CDF. The National Government CDF Act, the latest, has removed the Member of Parliament as a member of the CDFC. The committee of that runs CDF for the constituency.
That is the due, but de facto?
No, we are talking about the law. So when you say it's unlawful, then we follow the law.
It's illegal, we've just gotten around it.
It's not illegal. It might be misused because Kenyans don't understand. I think that's what I'm trying to say. The chairman of the CDF today, the CDFC, the Constituency Development Fund Committee, is the one who actually submits these project proposals to the...
But surely the chairman of a CDF committee who is not
because we're on TV, because we're on TV, and I think Kenyans are listening, let us allow them to understand this so that they can start now understanding that the MP, number one, is not supposed to influence what's supposed to happen. The MP belongs to a committee called Constituency Oversight Committee. That is just a committee of 5 people that he picks himself, that is not even registered at the national board level. It is only him. His work is to actually help in terms of identification of projects that can be funded or not be funded by the committee of CDF, headed by the chairman. And the panel that is there to pick these people to sit has nothing to do with the Member of Parliament. I think it is only fair to understand and appreciate that.
You're talking about the ideal.
No. It is the law. Just a minute.
You're talking about the due, that is the law. But de facto on the ground, the truth is that no one sits on the CDF committee who is not allied to the MP.
You know why?
Decides.
You know why? Because people don't know. And I think my people perish because they have no knowledge. And
let me just allow Salim.
I can see where the challenge is between what Charles is suggesting and what Arnold is talking about. Is the whole question of implementation of the CDF as a fund. And Arnold presents very well that it is in its implementation where the challenge is. And that's why I agree with him. But in terms of legality, we cannot say that it is illegal if the law is very clear and the law provides. I used to really advocate against members of parliament sitting on the CDF committee in the executive capacity. It abuses the doctrine of separation of powers. So that you are, and that's why in parliament, you had never seen any cases of misuse of CDF fund being reported in parliament. Who will report? Because it is me who is supposed to report in my constituency. I'm the one who misused that money, so you'll never get it. But back to that question of the weaker link, I think you're just disabusing that, and your point is home. That I want to agree with the two gentlemen that actually it's Parliament, because Parliament then need to move with speed to ensure that it helps, because I mentioned the investigation, that we lose it at the investigation point. So that Parliament, because there's this whole question of presumption of innocence, that you have been accused, and therefore you must be presumed to be innocent until you are proven guilty, but that there is something that is connected to it. If you are holding public office and you have been accused, then the first step is that you step aside. Because for as long as you remain there, you are tampering with the investigation. There is nothing that will happen. So we need to see the balance. And Parliament should give us that with regards to Chapter 6. So that if you are accused of corruption, and indeed any criminal offense, then the honorable thing, and it should not just be honorable now, it should be the legal thing that you should do is to step aside so that investigations are conducted. You can't sit in office as a governor and you're being accused of looting the same county money and you still sit there as the head of the executive and we expect that investigation will go well. Because then we will be making corruption to look so cool. So that even the procedure of electing people will change. It will be now in this country that if you want to be elected, get into public office, steal, and if you've stolen, go to court. And if you are taken to court, you get back to your office, interfere with the evidence, you are acquitted, run for an office, you win. And then we have a parliament of people who've been accused of corruption, and that becomes an endemic problem in this country.
So Arnold says we have a rogue parliament, and my other two guests seem to agree. Bessie, do you agree?
Now he's talking. He's talking. Salim is talking, and I hear him and I support what he's saying. Now it still comes back to the very point I was saying. Most Kenyans are ignorant. What you're talking about, not many Kenyans do know. So it's ignorance is bliss. For the MP, he knows here I can put my flower girls to be the people who run the CDF, and nobody will check them. So what are we also on our side doing to make sure that we have empowered Kenyans to know this is what the Constitution provides for? Because until we also get Kenyans to be on the same page, we always be looking like the people who are the elite. And unfortunately, even the elite have their own divisions. So we have to educate the Kenyans on the same thing that we are talking about here.
Though it's not fair enough to say that Kenyans are ignorant, just get hold of a man out here. And they know this country where it's headed. They have got even better ideas. That's where Article 10 comes in, public participation. Kenyans are not necessarily ignorant. They just give up to fate so easily.
I guess still remain from my extreme left. It's Salim Odeni. He is a political analyst. Beside him is Arnold Maliba, and beside him is Bessie Kadhambi, and just beside me is Charles Munyui. Thanks for staying with us. Let's just play a clip that we have from the Chief Justice and listen in to what he said earlier last week.
The judiciary is extremely underfunded. If the Kenyans want judiciary to give them the services they require, we need funding. Last year we asked for that 1 billion, we were given 14. You have put yourself in my position, what you are supposed to do.
We shall ensure any person, be it be from public or private sector, who may be tempted or even try to illegally benefit from public funds will be ruthlessly pursued, investigated, and arrive in a competent court of law.
All right, so there you heard the Chief Justice speaking once again about the need for the judiciary to be funded, arguing that they are underfunded, yet they are expected to carry out their mandate. And also after that, Mr. Kinoti, the Director of Criminal Investigation, speaking about corruption issues and how they will indeed investigate before any cases are taken to the courts. All right, so we have focused pretty much on the judiciary and also the war on corruption. Let's talk about some other political issues that have taken place this year, and one of them is the reorganization of government and the promotion, one could say, of the Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. Bessie, what were your thoughts when that happened?
At first, I asked myself why. Then you see, there is structure, and I believe he has proven that he is a go-getter. Now, my problem would come in with the lazy CSs who he has to keep pushing to do their docket, to do what they have been called to do. So it has its benefit, and also it has its demerit. Why? we want to see the other CSAs also being go-getters, people who know what they're doing. And I thought maybe when the president was doing the reshuffle, you'd have started with a reshuffle with the CS for Treasury, because that is where our problem begins when it comes with all the funding, all the money that is being lost. That is one person who should have been put aside. We get someone who understands the economics of this country. So when we have someone like the CS Matiang being given such a pivotal place, it's also demeaning, and at the same time, it gives him the clout he needs, that he's a go-getter. But demeaning in the sense that he looks to be now the prefect whipping other CSAs, do your job, and that's not the kind of thing I would really see it like a good thing in terms of governance.
All right, Arnold, your comment.
Well, I'll begin from the point, did we need restructuring or a reshuffle? From where I sit, I think probably a reshuffle with a bit of sackings here and there would have been what the doctor prescribed for the country, and not this structuring. Because if you look at the order, the executive order number 1 of 2019, there's nothing technical about it. There's nothing governmental about it. It's purely political. In that, we already have got a way government is working. It's political, and there is bits of what should be worrying. So I'll begin with the worrying element to it. The reintroduction of provincial administration, giving it a lot of hope and a lot of hold. The president needs to move on. He is the inventor of the statement, accept and move on. He needs to move on from those elements of old where the provincial administration played so much of a role. He really loves, every time the president is pushed on a wall, he has got this tendency of going back to a police state mentality. He loves that a lot. And that is why you realize that most of the people he's giving work to do are either cops, spies. Every time the president is in a corner, he goes to a spy. He looks for a police officer. So the provincial administration mentality, bit of the good thing is that we have got the Constitution 2010. Now, the political bit of it is that I think we all saw this coming. When the president came up, and he's very good at coining words, I think because he's the head of the country, whatever he says comes up so strong. He came up with the tanga tanga. Those are his own words. When he started crying out that people should relax and work, then 2022 will come. People should have seen symptoms and signs that this guy was getting frustrated. So he comes in, whatever he has done, if you look at the order, it's so easy. He's given the tanga tanga team time off so that they can actually go out there and politic and give somebody else work, or rather come up with a team to work. Otherwise, what he's doing is just reconstituted the PDU, the Presidential Delivery Unit. That's what now Matiang'i now heads. And one would want to ask what Nzioka Waita is now doing. Probably he's been given now the PSU, the Presidential Strategic Communication Unit. Otherwise, if you look at it...
I think we need to slow this, my brother, down a little bit. And also help a little bit, because we need to have the benefit of the law. What the president did is nothing new, provided for in law. If you read the National Government Coordination Act, it's not a new thing, it's there. And the law provides for all these things that happened. It's not something new the president has come up with. He could have done the breathing of life into this thing, but trust me, this whole arrangement, when we came up with the Constitution of 2010, we have the national government, when we have the county governments, the 47 of them. The national government has a law that guides it on matters of coordination. And that is the law that says exactly what he did. It is not Matiang'i, the person that was given the position of coordinating national government. Remember, his ministry is called Interior and Coordination of National Government. So the aspect of national government coordination is domiciled in law that the person who is a CS, that particular ministry becomes the person that now these national committees and the other ones that are provided for in law reports to. So it's not reorganization of the cabinet or anything like that. And I think that is an aspect that Kenyans need to appreciate and see. It's not something that came from the blues and was thrown into that order number one. So it is provided for in law. The vice chair of that is also provided as CS Treasury. Mm-hmm. So that is again in law. Now, what has been happening in this country, and you remember this has come very closely to what has been happening where people are saying we have not received development, this has not been happening. We have seen individuals, some accusing the deputy president of launching one road twice, from this end and then from the other end, twice, with those plates that they usually put over there. So And this has created a lot of confusion. Kenyans out there don't know the functions of the national government and the functions of the county government. And my brother should actually help them understand that the provincial administration as it was just restructured. The deputy county commissioner is still there. The assistant county commissioner, the equivalent of the DO then, is still there. The chief is in villages, is still there. And the assistant chief is still there. What they cannot do, they cannot touch functions of the county government. You cannot go to the chief to tell them your nursery school is not functional, because that's a function of the county government. You are supposed to look for the ward administrator for the county government and give that information. And I think I concur with my sister here when she says, what we don't have is civic education. Kenyans have no clue how governance works, especially now with the 2 levels of government. So I think it is a reality that the system of governance, the national government has its own structures, and the law says this should be devolved to the lowest possible point. So up to the sub-chief down there, and it's taken into consideration. What now the president introduced into the committee, and again the law allows him to do, is to come up with these committees that are called, and the individuals that are called presidential delivery unit guys, that now harmonize what's happening, so that at the village, a villager can ask, with this road, was it factored in the budget? And if it was, is a problem at the procurement level, or is it implementation? And I think that's where we need to look at this thing. Instead of looking at it from a political perspective, why don't we look at it as national government being coordinated to the extent that an average guy out there can know, which office do I walk into if I have a problem of insecurity? Do I go to the governor? Do I go to the chief?
But that is not what the order does.
Interject. I just want to bring in Salim before we cross over live to my colleague Bernard. This reorganization, what impact does it have on the deputy president?
I think I would want to agree with Arnold that there are 2 levels of looking at it. In terms of what Charles is saying is completely true, that there is nothing extraordinary legally that the president has done, because Article 132 of the Constitution actually mandates the president to coordinate and supervise all the ministries and all the governmental programs. And then the same article empowers the president to do appointment or to assign anybody that role. In his own wisdom, initially, he had created a ministry that is called the National Interior, the Ministry of Interior and National Coordination, which apparently, currently is held by Matiang'i. So Matiang'i has been doing coordination all through. But then the president, as mandated by the Constitution, then went ahead through that Executive Order number 1 of 2019 to now allow Matiang'i to do it in terms of coordinating and supervising all other ministries in terms of the program delivery for the government. The other aspect of it is now what Arnold is saying, and I completely agree with him, the political aspect of it. President has been saying all through, especially after the handshake, that he wants to concentrate on his legacy, so that we tone down on politics, and then let's go ahead and implement the projects that we had initiated, so that I leave a legacy for the people of Kenya. His principal assistant, the deputy president, has been with him on this at one point. The other point, he departs from it and do politics of 2022. And then the president has been onto it. Sometimes he says, wale watu wa kutanga-tanga. Sometimes he says that he will be here and he tells people, I don't want politics. The deputy president says, okay, I have listened to it. But he goes to Mombasa, he opens politics. He goes to Western, he says, I want to be president in 2022. You know, I'm a hustler. So then the president is tired, because I can't fire you. Constitutionally, can't sack the DP. So what do I do? I say, okay, you continue. I give you space. You tanga-tanga, you do your 2022, because it seems to be so much into your blood. You do it. And then let Matiang'i help me achieve my legacy, because that's what I want. So I think that's politically, that's what the president is equally communicating, and I agree with Arnold.
We'll continue that conversation shortly, but first, let's cross over live to Rongo, where NTV's Bernard Ojwang has more on this topic.
Today. And if we
All right, unfortunately, we have lost the connection with NTV's Bernard Ojwang. We'll try reconnect with him shortly. All right, let's continue the conversation. Bessie, you had something to say.
Yes, well, I agree with what they're saying. Only that the question I would ask is, why now? You had 2013, why didn't you have this oversight kind of thinking then? Because it would have made more projects, more legacies to be worked on. And the best legacy, I'll still tell the president, is fight corruption. That's the best legacy you can give this country, because when we have our money back and we have the right people in the right positions, then we have a country. You can have Matiang'i on all these places. He's also getting tired. And it will not prove anything, because if you put an incompetent person in a position, even if you ask him to supervise an incompetent person, what fruit does it bear? Yes, fight corruption, put the right people in the right place. I agree with what Arnold is saying. He's trying to also militarize positions so that we think military, police kind of thinking. But that doesn't work. We need to have transformative leaders or people in these positions, people who can think outside the box, not box ourselves and try and box Kenyans into the same thinking.
Right. But I'm thinking that as we talk about this, we must also laud the handshake. There's something the handshake has done, and out of the rubbles and the ruins that the handshake has actually brought, a new hope in the new country comes up. That with the handshake, people all of a sudden have realized that real politics is about what comes to me, including coming from areas where people would not question and talk about development. Yes. Because the easiest way to win an election in central Kenya, for example, was just to point at Raila. He was the scarecrow that you put up. At any particular time, it was the easiest way you rally. The rallying philosophy was around individuals and not issues. Now people are asking questions. Right. The same thing in, by the way, the people, especially the Jubilee people that are very annoyed with what is happening, are where the NASA people were after the handshake, immediately after the handshake. Because including the word handshake was actually coined by the NASA people themselves. They were very, very annoyed. But the people in Jubilee thought this handshake wasn't going so far, but they've realized it's actually firming up. Now, the people in NASA who were supporting Raila initially now have realized that it's not just about the fight, it's about issues. Now they're asking about what they get out of the handshake and out of politics. Same thing now, the kind of conversation we're having. I think when Raila's father wrote Not Yet Uhuru, I think this handshake is now answering that, and I think it's now Uhuru for Kenya. And when Uhuru's father wrote Facing Mount Kenya, the mountain that this country faces has always been politics of them versus us. Politics devoid of ideology. Our rallying philosophy has always been about people and not issues that really matter. So I think the mountain, Uhuru now has faced the mountain. And I think for the two, we are at a very good place. It's a very good ground to put up a new political order, new people to come up, including people who are complaining about the handshake. They should come up with a new formation, challenge this government, put up a new government in 2022.
Okay. Yeah. All right. On that note, we can now actually take you live to Rongo and reconnect with NTV's Bernard Ojwang. Over to you, Bernard.
Well, thank you very much, Smitri. What's going on here? We are in Rongo Charlotte Primary School, where currently pupils are currently electing their leaders. Initially, there before teachers in their meeting, they were appointing school officials, starting from school head boy to even class representative. And now things have changed. It is the pupils have now said enough is enough. They are the people electing the people who will be representing them. And as you can see behind me, they have lined up there, and some and also casting their votes here. And we'll be talking some of the candidates here. Just tell us, why are they vying for these seats? You join me here. Habari yako?
Nzuri.
Unatafuta kiti gani?
Deputy President.
Kwa nini unatafuta kiti?
I want to help my fellow pupils so that we can cooperate with the teachers. And also so that we can unite as school or as a family in school.
So once elected, what do you promise your people here?
I promise that we will cooperate and manual work together, and we will be able to work together as teachers and pupils, plus my fellow leaders. Yes.
Well, I'll speak to another candidate here. Join me here. You'll tell me which post are you going for, and once elected, what do you promise your people here?
I'm vying for the deputy president. I'm vying for the deputy president, and I will be a good leader. I'm promising my fellow pupils that I'll be more suspicious about our school. I'll ensure that our school will perform very well.
Initially, we used to see teachers are all the other people appointing these prefects, and now it is pupils electing their people. The people will be representing them. What do you think about this?
They want a good leader, and I will be one of them. And I'll ensure the school will be very, very performance.
What are you going to change?
I'll bring the unity between the pupils and the teachers.
Well, I thank you very much. I'll speak to one teacher here, one of the teachers here, just to tell us. Okay, initially you used to sit in your meeting, elect, appoint these school officials, and currently it is, as people have said, enough is enough. They are the people to elect. They are people who will be representing them. What do you think about this?
Thank you so much. I am so happy and glad that I may give my reasons as to why I think this is the best thing that should be done and be copied by all Kenyans. I think it is an impression which was expressed, and when this is happening, we are not like limiting our children from their interest and maybe their choice. So I think it is one of the things that I really cherish and thank the ministry for thinking and making all the pupils to feel like they're also Kenyans and to also to have the impression as to why leaders should be elected. This is going to give our pupils an opportunity to reason by themselves and to develop interest, which is actually may help them to go higher and even become great leaders that they admire in the society.
You had one of the aspirants there saying that they will bring change and unite teachers and pupils together. How do you think this will work?
I think this will work in that they are representing the pupils and they will be talking on behalf. That means if there is any problem experienced by the children, these leaders who have the confidence, the will for their colleagues are able to approach their teachers because this is the order that is required. So I think it will be very possible in that they have that self-driven spirit.
Well, thank you very much. I'll speak to some of the electorates here. Join me here. Umekuja hapa kupiga kura. Umekuja kuchagua kiongozi wa aina gani?
Nimekuja kuchagua viongozi wengi. Tuna rais wetu wa shule, tuna magavana na wengineo. Sasa tumekuja kuchagua kura ili tuweze kuwa na mabadiliko hapa shuleni, kama vile usafi shuleni, kama muungano wa walimu shuleni na mengineo.
Kuna wale viongozi ambapo watachaguliwa siku ya leo, pengine ni ungependa kuwaomba?
Na waomba ili waweze kuleta mabadiliko shuleni, upendo na umoja shuleni. Maana wahenga walisema ati umoja ni nguvu, utengano ni udhaifu. Na tunaweza kusema pia, naweza kusema kama mpiga kura ili walete amani shuleni na masomo iendelee ili siku moja tuwe weledi maishani mwetu.
Na hapo awali walimu ndio walikuwa wanachagua viongozi ambao walikuwa wanawaongoza, na kwa sasa nyinyi ndio mnachagua. Mnaona ni nini ilikuwa inaleta shida walimu wakichagua viongozi ambao wanawaongoza hapa shuleni?
Ilikuwa inaleta, kama tuseme, it was bringing corruption, and there were some people complaining that the teachers were corrupt. They were choosing just the most top classes, so it was bringing a lot of chaos. Yeah.
So you are not of the idea?
Yeah.
Well, I'll see the last person. Habari yako?
Nzuri.
Unapiga kura?
Napiga kura. We exercise our rights in school. Yes.
So unachagua kiongozi wa aina gani?
Kama magavana, deputy governors, president na deputy president.
Nini unatarajia kutoka kwa wale viongozi ambapo watachaguliwa siku ya leo? Nini ungependa wafanye?
Waeke shule ikuwe safi. Kama vile choo iwe safi. Na the school compound also to be clean.
Well, thank you very much. Smriti, you've just heard from these pupils there. They are saying that they are electing their leaders. Initially, teachers in their meeting, they used to appoint these pupils leading their colleagues here. And now things have changed. They have said enough is enough. They're the people to elect their leaders. And they are saying that this is going to bring some change. And they, after today's exercise, they are saying they are expecting those people who will be elected today at least to make sure that there is cleanliness in school, and also unite teachers with pupils here to avoid cases of whereby some pupils are saying they are ignored in school, they are neglected, they don't get their rights, as you heard from one of the speakers there. Back to you, Smriti.
All right, Bernard Ojwang coming to us live from Rongo. Thanks very much for that. Some great little budding leaders there. Charles.
Amazing, isn't it? And I think that is the direction we must go. When we hold elections at that very early age, appreciate, number one, that their leadership qualities within our institutions, first and foremost. And number two, when our young people start appreciating the need to come together and put one of their own in positions of power so that they can sort out their issues. And you've heard, there are very basic issues, interaction with the teachers, cleanliness of toilets, and you know how toilets in schools look like today, especially rural schools. Basic, very, very basic issues, but that is now what magnifies at the national level. So if you can start this small, and they should be encouraged through the ministry, I think if we have such happening, then ultimately within the next 15, 20 years, we're going to have the same young men and women electing into office people based on ability, capability, and qualification, as opposed to our people today. Because I don't think any one of those kids is buying their colleagues sweets and stuff like that for them to be voted in. I haven't heard anything to that effect. And they are there, you know, faithfully waiting to vote for their colleagues to put them in positions of power. I think we need to go back that way, because our age and my colleagues here, I think it might be too late in the day. That's why we are talking about taking people to court, prosecuting, jailing, and sometimes shooting when necessary. Those ones will be preemptive, and I think they will put the right people in places of power and leadership, to the extent that now we'll have dealt a big blow to matters corruption.
Right. So perhaps we need to learn from them, because Bessie, really our leaders are not setting the best example for the youth, are they?
Yes, and that what they're doing actually proves that this we have been calling children have eyes and can see. If they can be able to denote that a teacher is picking their favorite, that tells you this is no longer that ignorant. And
they call it corruption.
Yeah, and they call it corruption. They know what corruption is. So this I allowed, because we are now learning. If you can see there's nobody throwing stone, hakietu, nobody doing all this violence, they don't have this hatred or ethnicity that we want to always propagate in every corner, that it is my people, my people. They are looking for the issue. I want unity. I want a clean toilet. I want a clean environment. I want cohesion with our teachers. You see, they know the issues, not the person. And that's where we should also be learning.
All right. Sam.
I think I want to agree. It's really amusing how the agents of socialization, we have got it all twisted, that now we have to come back and learn from children. But I've seen one of the best examples of how to conduct elections in terms of issue-based politics. That you listen to them, they don't talk about my people. My people are being sidelined, what they're going to do. And then taking cue from what Arnold was saying before we went for the break, is that in line with the handshake again, and borrowing from what we've seen, is that it denies those mediocre politicians opportunity to continue with their mediocrity. Because prior to handshake, all you needed to do in Central Nyanza was to say how Raila was bad and how Raila would never be president and that, and people would clap for you. Even if you don't implement any project, that was good. And all you needed to do in NASA strongholds, especially the Luo Nyanza and the rest, was to say how Uhuru stole from us and how our vote was stolen, Raila is still the big man, Baba. Even if you don't do anything, then people would still listen to you. But now I want to encourage the former Prime Minister and the President to continue with this handshake until 2022, so that we have an issue-based politics. So that when you go to the competition, it will no longer be a question of Uhuru is this or Raila is this. Tell us that which you can do, so that we elect you on the basis of that. And then we will also have a set of principled politicians. And before I forget, because I've been talking about this, our politicians say this, they forget it the next day. And recently I was mentioning, especially the Deputy President, he told us when he began his campaign for 2022, that you see me, I'm a hustler candidate. And then he painted other people to be the dynasties. The Raila Odinga, the Uhuru Kenyatta, the Gideon Moi, they are the sons of who is who in this country. I don't believe that they are dynasties, because I know Uhuru Kenyatta crafted his own way, Raila charted his own waters, not inheriting from Jaramogi. Uhuru lost in Gatundu, South, so he didn't inherit so much from Kenyatta, perhaps from Daniel Moi, not from Kenyatta. Then Raila equally didn't inherit much from Jaramogi. He charted his own ways. But back to what William Ruto is saying, he is forgetting as a principal politician, because he is not, that He himself, he has never voted outside the same dynasty. In 92, he voted for Moi that now he calls dynasty. He did that in 97. Even in 2002, when the entire country knew that the hustler, Mwai Kibaki, was going to win, he still found reason to vote for the dynasty, Uhuru Kenyatta. Same all the way through to 2007, Raila Odinga, 2013, again Uhuru Kenyatta, 2017, Uhuru Kenyatta. And there have been so many hustlers, he has never found any reason to vote for them. Now that it is his time, he's changing the rules of the game. And he's saying, now I'm the hustler, vote for me. And that's now what I call politics without principle, which must change in 2022. And then Sheikh Arnold says, gives us that opportunity to ensure that we interrogate our politicians.
Okay,
I'll start from Rongo. I think the practice of inducting young people into civics and just being part and parcel of the public management affairs is a very important practice that comes with the new curriculum, though it has been there coming in slowly. And you realize that politics is always local. All politics is local. When you listen to these kids, they even behave much better. That when they are being asked, what are you going to vote for? They say, I'm going to vote for a person who looks like this and this. If you showed up on the street and asked an adult here during campaigns, who will you be voting for? They will shout out a name. And if they do not have a name, they will shout out a party. Kids here are much ahead. And actually have seen a voter who should not be a voter. That girl sounded so much of a leader. And, and this is the peril of this country, that sometimes very good leaders are serious voters. And the people who should be voters end up on the ballot. So I think that is a good practice. And when they come out, they know that it's possible to lose and life continues. That when you win, you still need to work. There is delivery after that. But then I personally have got an experience when I was in Standard 6. Somebody lost to me and he only got 10 votes. I laughed the whole day because I did not understand how somebody can get 10 votes. Until I ran for head boy when I was in Form 2. You know, sometimes Form 2s can actually be very dynamic. And I got 0 votes because I wasn't voting. It's some other people who are voting and we weren't allowed to vote. But somehow I compensated it when I got Form 3. So, and you know, in all these things you get to accept how things work out. I'd like to probably just round up what Salim has said here. There is no difference between what Ruto calls dynasties and himself. Yeah. What are the characteristics of what we call dynasties? Most of them have got wealth that is almost like from the occult world, money from nothing. You cannot explain where they got money. As in, like, here with Bessie, she probably might just own a small Toyota, then tomorrow I hear she owns KICC. So there's not so much difference between them. And like the animal farm, as the story ends, you know, the animals looked at the pigs and then they looked at man. They looked at the pigs again and then they looked at man. And there was no difference. They could not tell the difference. So at this particular time, you cannot tell the difference between what William Ruto calls the dynasties and himself, because he is them and they are him. There's not so much difference. So, and I think the handshake is denying him the opportunity to play the politics of them versus us. And it's a new ball game. He will just have to learn. The president told Maraga on Friday that the Maraga will have to live with the bloggers. Yes. I'm thinking the deputy president will just have to live with the handshake. As in, like the rest of all of us, he just has to live with it.
Yeah. I think when we come to the politics of 2022, it will be a different ballgame. Whether you come in as a hustler or whatever else you want to call yourself, the 2022, if you bring issues and you show you can command that I have the capacity and the competence to work on these issues, you will be the president. Because you will be dealing with people from the middle class who may not understand your hustler mentality, what they're saying. And you have another group where we call the instant microwave generation, where if you don't gratify their instant needs, then you don't fit. So he has, even Ruto, as he's trying to play out as the hustler, what I would ask him is join the president in making sure he leaves a legacy. In the process, maybe someone may look into it and say, you've been handling issues correctly. But having, like the meeting that was said, they sat down to discuss Matiang'i. I mean, a person from a leadership pedigree of that level, I mean, it's being trivial. It's really trivial. So if you want to be president, the bar has been raised. The handshake has done that. You either are issue-based, we don't know about your tribe. It will be principle-based.
Charles, do you want to comment?
I think I agree with my colleagues that 2022 is about delivery now. It's not about anything else. And I think the toning down deliberately, like my colleague has said, the aspect of the DP always saying this very nice stuff, then either himself or his allies act in contravention of what he has just said 15 minutes earlier. And I think everyone has noticed that that is happening. It's a trend. So this, the way the statement was sent out there in terms of the Matiang'i elevation, if you like to call it that, and what needs to happen now is a very good thing, because the name Tanga Tanga might just get into extinction, if you ask me. I don't think it will happen again. There will be nothing like Tanga Tanga. People will have to rebrand and come up with something else. And I've seen he was actually the first or second person to support the executive order number 1 of 2019. And he said this is the direction to go. What he needs to do is now go back into the drawing board and ask himself, of course, much as I need to be the president in 2022, it is about leaning on what is happening. After all, he's a deputy president of the Republic of Kenya and is a cabinet minister. He's a member of the cabinet. So it's not like he's very removed from what is happening. It's only that he started pushing for his cake too early, and I think that has come to haunt him. Importantly, because I'm seeing now we'll refocus on the big four, as it were. My concern with the big four is that they are 90% domiciled in counties, if you look at them critically. Because if you look at public health or universal health, we are talking about just about health, the whole of it being a counter function. So if you want to give people good health and facilities and everything, you need to invest seriously with counties. You need to work very closely with counties. I am not sure I have seen that arrangement where county governments are also primed into appreciating that in terms of delivery on universal health, we need the counties themselves investing in hospitals up to level 5 to the extent that we don't have to have people queuing in Kenyatta all the way from Turkana. If it's about food security, we are talking about agriculture, as it were. So I have not seen governors again aligning themselves in that direction by way of budgetary allocations. You've seen they are doing 2% or 3% in terms of development. So I don't know how they'll be able to align themselves. If you look at even industrialization that we're talking about, it's what the counties are strong in. If you're strong in agriculture, if you're strong in this, then that is what industrialization that will be centered around. And I think that is the next discussion that should be there between the national government and the county government at the summit. How do we align our counties and the leadership therein with what is expected of us? Otherwise, in terms of that, then you'll find a lot of frustrations. You've seen when you start looking for money to fund the housing projects, teachers are saying no. Everyone is saying no. The county governments that own the land are not clear on where they're coming in. So I think these are issues, these are the pertinent issues, and that's where the DP should come in very clearly, and the presidency and Raila Amolo Odinga through their arrangement that they have, and ensure that county governments are not left behind. Otherwise, we'll mark time at a hold on the same spot for the next 2-3 years, and we look at the delivery, ultimately, we'll not have a lot to write home about.
Okay. Salim, in your view, what ought to be the President's key priorities, particularly in 2019, to ensure, a successful year for us all?
Maybe as Bessie had said, that one of the things that he should really concentrate in implementing is to ensure that we now move from words to action with regards to war against corruption. Because that's one of the best legacies that then he would leave for this country. The other thing is that we are not yet a nation state. We are a state with several nations, divided people, that when we go to the election, then it is very easy to divide us along the lines of ethnic backgrounds. So that's one of the areas that I also applaud the handshake for, that then they move around the country to unite the country so that we have one nation, we have one country that we can forge ahead with. All these things we are talking about, we can't win these wars when we are not united. Even war against corruption, you can't win it if you are divided, if we have very strong ethnic hatred amongst ourselves. Then we will begin again going back to canonizing thieves and talking about them as our own thieves. So that if somebody steals is a corrupt person, then we have to defend him because we are divided as a nation, and therefore have to defend somebody from my background. So war on corruption, issue about cohesiveness in terms of bringing the nation together, because I hear that's what they talk about so much in the handshake. If they can deliver that for 2019, that would be not asking for too much.
But Arnold, how challenging is that going to be? Because up until today, we have struggled so much to achieve any of those. So what needs to change to ensure that actually we do achieve it?
Well, from where I see it, there is little that is going to be achieved except the ground upon which we play, because our politics hasn't so much changed. We still are very ethnic-based in the way we think. And it's not entirely a bad thing to support your own person, because we have got competent people from amongst us, from wherever we come from. But that, if that is going to really define how we, the fate of the nation, or rather the direction of the nation, then you realize we really don't go so far. Between 2013 and 2017, we did very little nationally. We did nothing so much to take us ahead. But wherever we were after the Kibaki stint, we somehow went back. You look at how the budget structure looks like, our fiscal management and discipline went down. But even as we speak, you still realize that there are some laws that have been broken. For example, around the debt. We have got a law in this country that says that when we take loans, they shouldn't exceed 50% of the GDP. As we speak, we are at 56%, and no one has raised that issue. So it's going to take time. I know the Building Bridges initiative is a bit of exclusive. It leaves some other people out, especially young people. And they know we are building a nation for them. Yet they have got very little say on that particular. The only thing they have been done is now to be turned into errand boys, running around saying that, you know, you work at the secretariat, and they do very little into it. So it's going to take a bit of time, and because Uhuru Kenyatta has nothing to lose by implementing this, and because the deputy, or rather the president, who has got all the power at the moment, can bring in Raila and you do nothing to him. I'm using Mbadi's word. No, not really Mbadi's.
Carry on.
Who is the MP for
Kajwang,
yes. Yeah, Kajwang said, you can do me nothing. You know, he was selling Mbadi. So Uhuru Kenyatta can, at the moment, do so much, and we can do him nothing at the moment. So he's going to change the playground upon which our, the foundation upon our politics is premised. And that for me is the big thing. Fighting corruption, changing the political terrain is so much of a policy he needs, or not really a policy, but a legacy he needs to leave behind, as opposed to even meeting the big four, because I don't think he can actually realize big four in the next 3 or 4 years. It's not going to be very easy to actually find. He just needs to run away with low-lying fruits. And like I said, corruption, the war on corruption, we will always remember him for that. And re-engineering our political ground. That for me is the biggest thing. If we change that, because that is the foundation, then we are in a better place. But finally, it's important to remind millennials like myself and most of them, I don't know whether Charles, you are a millennial, but all these guys in this country who were born after 1980, they make the majority of the population. Coming up to the year 2000, of course, there are sub-cohorts in between them. These guys who are voting here, the guys we've just looked at, those are called Generation Z, people born after the year 2000. So the first batch of Generation Z turn 18 this year. That is 1 million Kenyans. Those people are industrious, they think different. Look at how they are reasoning. The millennials who hold the biggest number of votes in this country, at the moment, at least, it's going to be at least 21 years before Generation Z catch up with the numbers of votes to challenge. Generation Z, the Generation Y, which is the millennials, Y, if they really are not careful, they might not produce a president. It could be the first generation, well, after independence, that might not have a president. Because if you look at a few of us who have ended up in power, we are not any different. Look at those in parliament. Look at those in the Senate. Look at those who are governors and senators and MCAs. But they are all half MCAs, 1,027 MCAs at the time of their election were under 35. So even as we talk about young people not doing so well, I'm thinking young people should understand the BBI process very seriously, because the nation that is being made is actually the nation they are going to lead. When you talk about the debt, this is the generation that is going to carry the biggest debt they have ever shouldered at any particular time. So in doing it, I think we need much more of Article 10 working, because the future of Kenyan politics is just on 2 articles in the Constitution. Article 10 and Article 43, the socio-economic empowerment, because we already have realized the first liberation, we chased away the white man. We now have got independence. That was the first liberation. We now have got a new constitution. It's about governance, and I think we've got one of the most progressive constitutions. And whereas we might really not like the way things are turning out, the constitution has done so well. Now, the last, and in my opinion, the final liberation is Article 43, as in it has to turn into food. It has to turn into the quality of the person I turn out to be. That is where it is. As a generation, are we catching up well? So I'm thinking, as we do that, probably we need to put young people at the center of everything. But then everything that is about youth in this country has always turned into corruption.
Yeah.
Be it NYS, be it kind of youth for YK92, everything youth in this country. I think as the president tries to work around, I would actually advise him to rethink and have young people at the center of what he's doing. I hope Raila also does the same and speaks to him. Because apparently, the casualties of the Jubilee administration, the 2 terms, have actually been young people.
But while at it or not, if you advise president as such, I think he would have a very quick answer. Remembering what he said when he was appointing Moody Awori.
That was reactionary.
He said that look at all the young people that have always given job. They disappoint me.
How many? Can he point at any? No, he can't point at any young person. The Constitution in Article 55 and 260Q clearly defines what a youth is. That is anybody who has turned 18 and not turned 35. Of all the people in court, of all the people the DCI is actually arresting, very few of them, actually 100%, we will talk about 99%, are his friends, his buddies from wherever he actually gets them. Those are the people who are actually stealing money, not the youth of this country. I'll tell you, the millennials in parliament are people like Sakaja, Murkomen, and what are they doing? Of course, a few of them could have their hands here and names mentioned here and there, but not the youth of this country. The president must reinvest in young people if he is going to succeed, if he needs a proper legacy. Otherwise, the BBI process and the handshake will be a personal endeavor between him and Raila only.
And I think that is a very interesting topic. And I know he is very passionate about matters youth, but I think the reality of this country is that we are always youthful, and I think we have we have substituted the word youth with youthful, so that now you are allowed, even at the age of 70, as long as you're energetic, you'll be youthful. And I think my take, I remember earlier he had talked about militarization of some of these organs, including the EACC, including naturally the DCI has to be a police person. I think we have tried a lot of individuals in the EACC, including people that we thought would go very far, but we just look at what exactly happened to them. Remember, the chairman of the EACC is actually a bishop. So we cannot say that in terms of getting someone who has ability to investigate and people who can be able to collect information, because information is power, including the DPP. I must admit again, the DCI is a good friend of mine. We were actually classmates at Kanyakine the same year. He was my school captain, so I know him, and he's a stickler for the rule of law. He's a performer. So when I talk about him with a lot of passion, I know, because someone I've worked with. And trust me, what he's doing is not for purposes of fame. He's doing this so that he can get us out of this. And one time I met him and he said, I would feel very bad in this position if I was to leave it and my kids are subjected, we're talking about crime, are subjected to the same very funny criminals that have been harassing us when I was not in a position to do something about it. What I'm trying to say is we need now to be supportive of these individuals, irrespective of their background. If someone is an intelligence officer who has been promoted to be the DPP and he's performing, he's delivering, if someone is a military intelligence officer who has been elevated to be the CEO of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, we have no reason whatsoever to doubt that he's going to perform. Considering we have been filling these positions with other individuals, and they have not been performing to the best, to what we would call, acceptable levels. Then I think if we can be able to support these institutions and the office of the Auditor General, such institutions, instead of us relying on Raila being on the other side to say, now you government are not doing this, these other politicians saying this, because they always say things depending on where they're sitting. So I think we need to be now keen on institutions this particular year. Let Kenyans refocus on institutions so that we stop thinking in terms of this person is the one who is going to come and become our savior. You've seen people that ordinarily would support the fight against corruption because they are members of Jubilee and even in positions of leadership within Jubilee itself, coming out and saying, now we are being targeted out of the blues, because naturally, if you are from Kikuyu land and there is a head of, and you are a senior Kikuyu person in terms of the politics of the country, and there is a senior person, a CEO of this or the other parastatal, there is a likelihood, 90%, that you know each other. So, and I think this is where we need now to come out very clearly and say, no, we are not going to allow us to be taken in that direction. 2019, we are going to refocus our energies on the fight against corruption, irrespective of what happened in the meeting that we had the other day. Yeah. And there should be a quiet deliberation between the three arms of government, especially the National Assembly. I'm really keen on the National Assembly because they have powers that are beyond what the Senate has. If we can have that conversation, it's not about telling the CJ how to run his house. No. It's actually the CJ pointing out that there is serious issues of conflict in the matters of laws that you have. If you want me to help you by way of my people ruling in your favor, then amend here, because this is the conflict that we find ourselves in. If you want us to help you in terms of stopping people from going back to work when they've been charged in a court of law, then this is what needs to be amended. Right. And that has in no way does not bring in the conflict of interest in terms of the or separation of powers. Okay, all right, thank you.
Let me just allow Bessie, and then we'll come back.
Okay, to add what Arnold is saying, number one, I think the president and Raila Odinga have a lot to do. And the sooner they get young people on board, the better for them, because it's getting to a point, yes, the president accused the young people of being thieves, but I would ask, where did they get the example from? Yeah? You're calling them thieves. They were not stealing because they have seen in the past that the older ones steal and walk scot-free. So we can't start calling each other, you're the criminal, I'm not the criminal. That blame game has to stop. So they have to also bring the youth in what they're doing, because, well, come 2022, what mandate do they have with the building bridge? Right. It finishes there. So they also have to outline to every Kenyan, that's where we now see the bit, we don't have sustainability. We start things with no sustainability in our mind, because 2022, they'll become obsolete. But they don't need to become obsolete because they can put in young people who have the interest of this country. Not, I have never been caught in any corrupt end, so he cannot accuse me of being thief and blanket me as being a thief. Yes, so, and all these people here have never stolen. Yes, so we need a sustainability aspect in all these projects that we're putting. I will still go back. If you fight corruption, Kibaki did his bit, and we started now seeing we have overpasses, underpasses. We'll remember Kibaki for that. Today, if I want to remember Uhuru, I want all the money from 2013 when he entered office to 2022. How much of that money that has been stolen back? And that will be a legacy that will remember.
Actually, I wanted to respond to...
will be a little bit self-defeating, because then we will be running away from meritocracy to begin issue of age.
Yes.
Ask yourself, all these people that my good friend Arnold is saying that have been charged, when did they join those offices? Or even the politicians that are allegedly corrupt, when did they join politics? They were very young people. They were youthful when they joined the politics, when they joined those offices. Nobody's employed in this country old. Everybody's employed young. Whoever is stealing from us was appointed. I'm saying joining the mainstream public service. I'm saying joining the mainstream public service. That's very clever. In terms of appointment, that's okay to end those parastatals and boards. All these people join when they are young. Even when they join politics, even the crop of politicians that we have right now, the Raila Odinga, the Uhuru Kenyatta, the Gideon Moi, and even William Ruto, all of them, when did they join? They didn't join at that age. They were very young. Remember, Ruto led the YK92. the youth for Kanu.
They had an opportunity to be part and parcel of those processes.
Now, if you give them opportunity, that's why I'm insisting, whether youth or old, can we have people with merit?
Yes.
So that we don't have age being the bar.
And we do not have a problem with people with merit. The people who are stealing are very qualified. So the issue about meritocracy cannot even arise here when the president comes up with a committee that does not have the face of Kenya. The face of Kenya is not just about ethnicity. It's also about ages. So when you have got a whole cohort, a whole generation left out, and we still go out and say, and then when in the president's defense, he says that I have given young people and they have stolen. When he has given, you know, the problem, we allow the president to call himself youthful for so long without challenging that. So a guy at 55 going to 60.
Is retirement.
My mother is not even the age of Uhuru, by the way, and I'm seated here. And Uhuru still calls himself youth. But I needed to talk to Charles.
Of course.
Very fast.
Of course, his mother even still calls him child.
So I need to
the African
get
setup, being youth is completely different.
To Charles, I think this program will actually, if we end without actually disabusing the issue that Charles keeps on bringing up in a very covered way, the issue of, I want to call it the personality cult. He talks about him having gone to school with the DCI, and he's a guy who is. So, the DCI, everybody knows him to be a good human being. He's a good human. But rather than the DCI showing up and being all over town, becoming the cop with a gun, putting on ill-fitting vests and stuff, I'm thinking the DCI, the best thing he can do for us is to restructure DCI itself, because he inherited a rotten structure, a rotten unit. The DCI in this country, everybody knows they are running errands for other people. So rather than show up all these things and preaching, he sounds so much evangelical. It's not his business to preach. My pastor will do that. Let us leave the preachers to preach. Him and Haji are now sounding like preachers, going out there sounding evangelical and throwing around kicks, quoting this, the Constitution as if it's the scripture, and sometimes misquoting it. I think we need to build systems as opposed to individuals. So for me, I would want to see the DCI work so much on ensuring that the DCI as a unit works effectively, as opposed to him coming out as a performer. By the way, if he performs, I love Michuki. I really like what he did, but I still regard him as a failure, because whereas he would perform well when he was the leader, immediately he left, no one could carry that out. As a leader, we do not so much look at what you have done, because times and places change. It could be eroded. But what do you leave behind?
Maybe allow me to respond to that very quickly.
Because we've got to close.
I need to appreciate one thing. And I would like you to go to your local police station and confirm if the DCIO who was there before the DCI came in is the same person who is there. You will appreciate that all of them were reshuffled. 99%
But reshuffles has
happened.
Have always happened.
Just a minute. Reshuffles are about people getting used to the individual around there in leadership. Let us appreciate when something good has happened to us. Yes. When you have the same DCIO in the same station for 20 years, there is going to be issues of complicity. That's a fact. Number two, and I would like you to appreciate this and even consult and ask. Today, if there is a murder issue, a gun has been used in this country, and the DCIO has not resolved the issue by way of having that person arrested or contained one way or the other, then that file gets to the DCI personally within 1 week, not the regional officers or the other. And I would like you to get this information. He's reorganizing these things that have been happening to us. Soon, he's going to have something called the Hall of Crime, where you can go in there and confirm this is someone who is a fraudster. In terms of motor vehicles, you walk in there, you'll go around, you'll see these people, so that when someone is trying to con you in town and maybe he's wanted, you'll see his photo. There are a lot of things that he's doing, but we cannot interact with them. We are only here talking about matters, corruption, and the investigation that's going on. But trust me, he's not the kind of person who will do PR around it. And I think with the police, what is important to us is to be secure as a country, to feel safer, and to see matters that are usually complicated getting resolved. Trust me, today, nobody will murder people just like that and get away with it. They're scared.
You are speaking for him, I'm afraid.
Police spokesperson. You invited me to.
We are out of time. I'm afraid we're out of time, but I truly do appreciate all your contributions. Thank you so much to you all. Salim, Arnold, Bessie, and also Charles. Pleasure to have you with us on the show this morning.